Today I'm going to show you how I turned this into this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is remove the current bunks. I'm just going to remove this top bolt for each one. So these 4 bolts. So the first tools I'm going to need is a socket wrench and then just a regular wrench. I'm going to use the socket wrench on the bolt and then the regular wrench to hold the nut steady. So we'll see which size socket we need for our socket wrench. 17. And then we'll check the size of the nut on the back. 17 as well. And then we will start to loosen these. Okay, so there's one. Okay, there's the second one. So we're removing bunk number 1. And then we'll just do that same thing for this side. Okay, 4 nuts and 4 bolts removed. And the bunks are off. Then I've got my kayak flipped upside down. I'm gonna lay the PVC pipes down. So this is to find the optimal spacing for the PVC pipe. Every kayak will be a little bit different. And then we want to measure from the center to the center. So about 14 inches is how far apart we want these on this end. And some kayaks taper to the front or the back. So just measure both. So luckily with this kayak, it's 14 at the front and 14 at the back. So I don't have to worry about trying to space the posts either in or out. So 14 inches apart at the front and back. So now I'm gonna drop these down to the lowest setting because the PVC pipe is taller than the bunks and I don't want the kayak to sit up too high. And we're gonna move it in so that these supports are about 14 inches apart. So I'm gonna move them down and into these holes here, leaving one in the middle. So dropping it down to the lowest, tighten these up. Okay, now I'm just gonna lower that one into the same spot over here. And now we're gonna do the same thing at the back with these two. I'm gonna lower them down a hole and move them in closer so that they are spaced 14 inches apart in the middle. Then I've got 2 3-foot pieces of slotted steel angle galvanized. The thickness is 0.074 inches by 1.5 inches by 36 inches long. So that's what's going to be going at the front and the back. So one will be sitting roughly there. And then the other one back here. Obviously I'll make sure those are centered. And then we just use the bolt and nuts from our bunks to mount them here. And the bolt is just a little thicker than the hole, so I'm just gonna have to drill that hole out a little bit more. The next tool I'll be using is a drill with a thick, high-speed stainless steel bit, just to expand on those holes a little bit to make sure the bolt can fit through. Okay, there we go. Now the bolt goes nicely through. Just had to drill it a little bit. So we'll be attaching that. And then I've just got to drill out this one a little bit as well. Okay, there we go. The bolts fit. Get these snugged up. Okay, so that one's on nice and snug. Now I just need to do that to the front one. Okay, so drilled these holes out a little bit. And the bolt fits. This would have been a heck of a lot easier with 2 people, but I managed to get the kayak up on the trailer by myself just to kind of do a dry run. I'm trying to figure out the spacing of the PVC pipe, how much should be hanging off the end here. So I'm kind of looking where does it stop contacting the bottom. So it looks like I'm gonna leave about 20 inches hanging off the end. I wanted to make sure I didn't come up too far because the front doesn't really sit on the PVC there. So I didn't want to have a bunch of excess pipe up here that the kayak won't be taking advantage of. So now I'm gonna line these up so that they're hanging 20 inches off the end. If I have the PVC hanging off 20 inches, 21 inches will put me right in the center of the holes. So I just need to measure to 21 inches. I'm gonna follow the writing, that way I can make sure it's exactly the bottom. And then we'll mark at 21 inches, and that's where we'll need to drill. Now that I've got both of these marked on the bottom, I'm just gonna line it up with the holes. Okay, and then we'll go up here and mark the holes on this side. Okay, so I got 4 stainless steel bolts. They are 3/8 of an inch thick. So I just found a drill bit that's a little bit bigger than 3/8 of an inch. So I will drill out those holes on the PVC. These are the bolts that we're going to mount on the bottom. I'm going to need to drill all the way through the bottom of the PVC out through the top, and then I'll use a hole saw to make a bigger hole here so that my socket wrench can fit through. So I'll just need to find out what size socket wrench head I will need for this bolt. Just confirmed that the bolt will fit through. So we'll drill these other 4 holes. And just trying to hold the drill as straight as possible when drilling through the top. So punched out the other side. And then I will be making that hole bigger with a hole saw. Okay, then we just need to find out what size socket fits on the head of this bolt. It's a 14 mil. And I will probably need my extension piece because the PVC is long. So now I just need a hole saw, tiny bit bigger than that. So found a hole saw that fits just barely over the 14 mil socket. So I will expand those top holes to this size so that the socket wrench can fit down in there to tighten the bolt. Okay, we've got our hole saw. And now we expand these top holes. It's got the drill bit in the middle, so you just put that into the hole there. And there we go. So now the socket wrench will fit down in there no problem to tighten that bolt when it's time. So we'll just drill out these other 3 top holes. Clean up all the little bits of PVC. And then just bang out the rest of it. Okay. Now we line these up with the bolt holes. So what I've done is I've just found the ones that will be 14 inches apart, because that's where we want the center of our pipe. So it's that one and that one. Earlier, I spaced these out about 13, 14 inches. You want to make sure that it's not exactly lined up with the bolt that you're going to be going through, or else there wouldn't be room to tighten the nut. I'll show you what I mean in a second. So you want to make sure you have room for the bolt that is going to be going through the PVC, and that it's not going to be against the bolt that is mounting the steel to the trailer frame. So I just kind of got lucky because that is pretty tight. But yeah, just something to be aware of and make sure that you leave room to put the nuts and washers on. The bolt fits through the circular ones okay, but not this size. So I'm just gonna have to drill this one out a tiny bit again. Okay, I just drilled that out a little bit. So now the bolt fits in there. Grab my socket wrench, put the bolt in there, go through sideways to start. Okay, now we've got the bolt sticking out. Line it up with the one we want. Then I want to add a little bit of rubber between the steel crossbar and the PVC pipe, just as a bit of like a shock absorber. But the main reason is I don't want the edge of this steel bar to crack the PVC or shear it off. So I'm gonna put a few strips of rubber between the PVC and the steel bar. Didn't really know where to find rubber or exactly what I was looking for. So I got this vinyl wall base. I got 20 feet of it. I'll just cut a couple strips of it till it's the thickness I want. You know, maybe I'll stack 4 of these on top of each other, and I'll just put them right there under the PVC. So again, it acts as a shock absorber, but the main thing is making sure that these sharp edges don't cut through the PVC from pressure. Rather than having to measure, I'm just lining it up, make a little notch, then just cut as straight as I can. And then I'll just cut a bunch of strips the same size. So I've decided on 3 strips in all 4 spots. Okay, so I've got my bolt sticking through. Gonna put my 3 pieces of rubber on. Okay, so we've got a little rubber barrier. Put it through my bolt hole. Now we've got our flat washer, our lock washer, and our nut. So flat washer goes on first. I've also just got a regular wrench to hold on to the nut while I tighten the bolt from the top. So I'll just thread these on by hand to start. Just getting it as far as I can by hand first. Okay, and we've got our wrench on the bottom, socket wrench on the top. Okay, so that is on. The key to this trailer is flexibility, so I didn't tighten it down absolutely as hard as I could, because you want the PVC to conform to the bottom of your kayak. But I might tighten that up a bit more later. So we'll do that in all 4 spots. Okay, so that's one side attached down. Now on to the other one. So on that first one, I bolted down this first, and then trying to drop the second bolt in there was pretty tough, like to line it up with the hole. So this one, I'm gonna stick them both through sideways like I did the very first time. And I'm not gonna drill until I've done it on the other one as well, which will make it a lot easier. So the rubber also helps the bolt from falling back through. Now we got the second bolt through. Put on our bits of rubber, and then just loosely set that one in there and go attach this one first. Now the very last step is I would like a little bit of a bend so that the kayak comes off the trailer smoother, and when loading it, there's just a bit of a lower spot for the nose to sit before pulling it up. So I'm just gonna mark about 1 foot, heat it up with a heat gun, and then slowly bend it down. Just a slight angle, because I don't want it to kink or anything. So hopefully I can do that. I'm just gonna evenly heat up with the heat gun all the way around, and then apply a little bit of pressure. Well, it didn't bend as nicely as I hoped. I probably should have had something underneath to bend it against. See if I can do better on the other side. Well, that did not go very nicely. Do not take any PVC bending tips from me. I watched one video and thought I could handle it. I thought as long as I went slow, it would be okay. This one popped out. This one caved in. So I do not know how to bend PVC. Hopefully I didn't ruin the integrity too much. But if I ever wanted to, I could just add like a 90-degree elbow, you know, cut this off and add a little 90-degree extension. I just thought this would look a lot smoother, but I definitely didn't expect it to look that ugly. But oh well, there we go. Well, hopefully you guys found that video helpful. One last thing I added is the angled aluminum's quite sharp, but they sell these little end caps. I believe my measurements were 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and these are sold for that. It's been about 3 weeks of use now on the trailer. Maybe I could have used a thicker angled steel. Like, it looks like it's bending a little bit. Nothing I'm concerned about yet. But maybe I also should have just removed these vertical pieces and put the angled steel directly on here. I think that would have been a lot better, because then instead of just having support at these two spots, the whole top of the angled steel would be sitting on this. So there'd be a lot more support there. But the good thing about this trailer is everything that I did can be undone. I didn't make any permanent changes, so if I need to get a thicker steel or remove these, I can definitely do that, but probably save that for the end of the season. But overall, I'm very happy with the outcome, and the trailer is performing great.